Hello and welcome back to a second video on the Imprint Infusion part of the Grimoire in the Imprint Grimoire chapter. The last video I covered the red path, which I called the damage dealer path. I now realized that they are actually calling them blade infusions, barrier infusions and mind infusions. So they are not necessarily damage, tank and support buffs. They are blade, barrier and mind. And that makes a little bit of sense when I take a look at these green ones. And I'm gonna take a look at these now. And I noticed something very weird, because in the blade infusion path, the damage dealer path, the red path, each star node gave an extra bonus besides the attack percentage and HP percentage. Damage reduction offset, all damage dealt, precision, holy damage, crit damage, and then crit chance. All a little bit extra for choosing a path. Then we go to the mind path, the green path. And these star nodes, they don't give anything. They just give attack and HP, and they don't give more attack and HP, they just don't give anything else. Except, I think, two of the paths. These last two paths here. This one gives speed, hella speed, 20 speed, you get 6 nodes. It's 120 speed, that's a lot of speed. And control immunity offset, total of 15%. Taking them all. Okay. I am gonna start over here with the big star nodes. When releasing active skills, gain 1 layer of purity, up to 4 layers. When releasing basic attacks, each layer of purity has a 60% chance to increase self-energy by 7. So it's an active skill, you can energy feed for it. Gains 1 layer of purity, up to 4 layers. But then when releasing basic attacks, each layer of purity has a 60% chance to increase self-energy by 7. Now, if you don't have 4 layers, right? Like the thing I see with this one is you are energy feeding, but somehow half your team dies off, or you're not energy feeding completely, like with the old school way of just demon bells, doing something weird, like you have some different artifacts instead, and you're not completely energy feeding every round. This might just give you that little edge once you have 4 stacks of this purity to energy feed every round. Like, it could be something, but I'm not too sure on it. It seems kinda weird, because either you want to active skill all rounds, then you never get the release basic attack part. And when you release basic attack, you gain more energy. So you already gain 50 energy from basic attacking, and then you can gain up to 28 more. So you will be at 78, and then you just gotta get hit a little bit less to gain 100 energy. I don't know. Seems weird. You already, most of the time, when you're not energy feeding, doing active every second at round. So I don't quite see where this is going, but hey, what am I to say? When releasing active skill, there's a 60% chance to inflict outburst of magic on the enemy with the most energy. Outburst of magic, skill effect, for every 1 point of energy the target has, deals 10% of attack damage and clears all the energy. This is a strong point, and I think like it does damage, but an enemy can't have more than 100 energy. If they had 100, you remove it all. It's 1000% of attack. That's decent, but the best part of it is that it clears their energy. Like, I've taken this path, it is also 1000% of attack as holy damage. It's kinda the same. So this might be good. It is a bit of damage, but I think it's better put on a support. You can also get this elsewhere. Hello, future editor Kami here. I was talking about outburst of magic being elsewhere in a Star Soul skill, and it's in the new Netherfish, which is released after the Grimoires. Not too sure when the Imprint chapter was released, but the Netherfish has Outburst of Magic built in, but it is not reliable, and it's not as good as the one you get in the Imprint chapter. So here you have, at the beginning of each round, if self has 50% or more HP, you grant self confluence for 1 round and inflicts inverse confluence on one enemy with the lowest HP for 1 round. This is very important that it's on the lowest HP enemy. Then once the hero has acted, done the attack, if self has confluence, it will trigger one of the following effects at random, of which there is 3, one of them being the outburst of magic on targets with inverse confluence. One of them reduces the healing, and I don't want to look at these. It is a stronger damaging part. It is 15% of attack for each energy instead of the 10% in the Imprint chapter. But it's on the lowest HP target, and it's only every 3 times it happens. So it will most likely never go on void bosses, right? It'll go on one of the small ads. At level 13 you get a bit more inverse confluence, can do a bit more outburst of magic. Just when it happens 3 times, next time you trigger an action. If self has 50% or more HP, it does the same, but this time it hits 2 enemies with the lowest HP instead of 1. It's just a bit more, but it is not as reliable to hit as the actual node down here, because this is targeted on the enemy with the most energy. That is most likely going to be the one you're targeting with how you're positioning your heroes, right? Like, I'm running an Aspen, he always targets the same spot on the opposite team. I'm always targeting the boss, so the boss will always, in most cases, have most energy. Could be better, could be worse. If the enemy boss goes fast, it goes off, does its active, and then my Aspen does his attack, and then zeroes his energy, and the boss will just regain energy. Maybe. It could be something, but that's this trait. Alright, back to the original recording I did. Hopefully this wasn't too far out of the way. Right. Then there's this. When releasing active skills, there's a 70% chance to remove 1 random debuff from self. It's pretty good. You can run CC Purify and still remove attribute reductions. At the end of each round, there's a 60% chance to remove 1 random debuff from self. It's just even more Purify. Doesn't remove CC, it's a debuff. So you can, with this path, not run attribute reduction or dot purify. That's the kind of thing they give. But you don't get any like immunity or dot damage reduction. That would be strong, right? And it's also just a percentage. You're not guaranteed. Next one. Basic attacks additionally reduce the target's armor by 10% for 3 rounds. Only basic attacks. Energy feeding teams doesn't do anything, but it's a support one. After releasing active skills, steals 15% armor from the enemy with the most armor for 3 rounds. This might have some synergies where, because there's some other points where you need more armor than the opponent, then you will counterattack. If you can get both, it could be strong. And you're reducing when you steal, I think. It should do. Maybe you just get more self. I'm not too sure. But it could have some synergy. I don't see it as the strongest trait, because you run a lot of armor break anyway. And if you're running armor break, armor doesn't matter. So, yeah. After releasing active skills, additionally steals 10% attack from the enemy with the highest attack for 2 rounds. That's pretty strong. We don't know how much attack stat enemies have. Like, we can guess in PvP how much they have, because they're similar to your own heroes, right? But, like, the Void campaign bosses, how much attack stat do they have? Can you steal from them? Do you gain lots of damage stealing from them, or is it minuscule damage increase? We don't know. It'll have to be tested. When releasing basic attacks or active skills, deals 10% of the target's max HP damage, capped at 1500% of the attacker's attack, to enemies with lower attack than self. So this is a good damage portion. It deals damage to all enemies with lower attack than self, so it's a bit of AoE. But again, we don't know if they have lower attack than ourselves. And it's so difficult to figure out if they have, right? Some testing can be done. Like you can go in with all these traits except this one, do some boss guild alter boss on the dummies, see your damage, do it again with this one, see your damage. Like it should be a decently higher number if this works, because it's every round, right? Then there's the speed path now. At the beginning of each battle, increase self speed by 50 for 1 round. So the first round, you're very fast. And when releasing basic attacks or active skills, if the target's speed is lower than self, there's an 80% chance to deal 10% of the damage dealt to them. So 10% more of everything on that first attack, if you are faster. It seems like a basilisk path might be worth, because this is just straight up 10% damage increase 80% of the time. Right? I'm not too hooked on these 80% things. At the beginning of each battle, increase self-control and immunity offset by 10%. Betty Wukong path maybe. At the beginning of each round, there's a 60% chance to reduce control immunity by 10% for enemies with lower speed than self for 1 round. That doesn't happen much when it's needed. Like, think Void campaign. You're never going first in those. You have to survive and then pray that your Betty or your Wukong or whatever team you're doing just CCs the crap out of the waves. So, I don't think these paths are too strong. I think this node could be strong. If you can get to it and you don't have any other way of doing outburst of magic, it's a strong point. And I think this path of stealing attack and doing more with your basics or actives is quite strong. These could be good. I'm not sure. It bothers me that there's no bonus on just picking the normal nodes. Like if I go down this path instead of the one I am currently, just not gonna get 45% holy damage. Like that's a huge loss as well, right? This is 1500% damage AoE, of course, to anything lower. This is currently just 1000%. This is 2500, but single target only. So there's some potential somewhere. Maybe also the steel armor, because one of these up here is if you have more armor. Yes, here. If the attacker's armor is lower than self, there's an 80% chance to counterattack, dealing 10% of the target max HP. Damage caps at 1500% of the attacker's attack. So it'll do the same amount of damage as this one if you have more armor on a counterattack. Could be something, but you need 2 full paths for that. Like if you have to steal before you have enough armor, right? So the mind path, I don't think it's too strong. I think it's lacking, especially that these nodes don't give anything. They could just, I get that these things don't really have a stat associated with them. Like this is the speed path, control immunity path. And they don't want to give this one armor, even though it's stealing armor and stuff, because there's a path up here that gives armor, right? It doesn't make sense to have 2 paths that gives armor. So I think they need to find out something. Maybe these should just be 2% attack and 3% HP instead. That's the bonus from going these paths. Otherwise I don't think they're worth it. Like you just, even though these 1% and 1.5%, the minuscule in the grand scheme of things. But it is what it is. So that's my take on the mine infusion path. I am gonna do a video on the barrier infusion path as well. That's gonna be the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.